Here.
Meacham.
Here.
Eric Ball. Yeah. Darren Marshall.
Here.
Kyle Ricker. Zachary Soloff.
Here.
Ethan Karate.
Here.
Hazel Sparks. Here. Helen Bella.
Here.
Taylor Stanford. Here. Oh, boy. That's the end of my list, unfortunately.
That would be, Jeff was out sick today and
Yeah,
Pam stepped up, so we should all thank Pam for stepping up.
Thank you very
You have, yeah, you have the digital one for sure.
Second. Stand by.
Let's start. We got it.
All right. Keegan Throat.
Here.
Memphis Peterson.
Here.
Oliver Wall.
Here.
Dylan Newman.
Here.
Neil Rocky.
Here.
Elizabeth Oldfield. Here. Abby Downer.
Excuse.
Chloe Stankovitz. Here. Olivia Griffin. Here. Riley Mills.
Here.
Dylan DeMarcho.
Here.
Amanda Levesque. Here. Jacob Marquis.
Excuse.
Hannah Blanchett.
Excuse.
Zachary Wentworth.
Here.
John Guzman.
Here.
Pascal Lamb.
Here.
Idaho Mbale.
Here.
Danny Tanaka.
Here.
Lori Tinoco. Here.
Thank you. I'm now looking for approval of the 11/12/2024 minutes on this agenda. Senator Dorn.
I move to approve the 11/12/2024 minutes on this agenda.
Second. If that is the pleasure of the Senate, that is adopted. We're going to skip the Robert's Rules tip of the week. Any general good and welfare and you non-member may address the General Student Senate for not more than 5 minutes. Seeing none, we'll move on to club maintenance, starting with the Astronomy Club here for preliminary recognition. Does the Astronomy Club have? Oh, never mind. Then we will move on to Ballet Club here for final recognition. Welcome.
Lauren Stafford, I am the treasurer of Ballet Club. Should I just tell you what it is? So we are a club that we meet every Sunday from 2:30 to 4. And we're a place for anywhere from advanced to beginners to learn and dance ballet. We have a showcase every fall. And the club meetings are for anyone who wants to participate in the showcase. Come and learn the piece that the officers choreograph, or if you don't want to be part of the showcase, you can just come and learn it.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker? Senator Home.
How many members do you have?
We have about 35.
Any other questions for the speakers? Representative Levesque.
How often do you meet for a week? Every Sunday.
Any other questions for the speaker? Senator Bone.
Do you foresee asking for funding from us in the future?
We may ask for funding for costumes for the showcase, and that would be just what we can't get covered from department if needed.
Representative Levesque.
Do you plan on doing any sort of fundraising outside of asking the department for help? If the costs are like something more than we would like as a club be able to.
Any other questions for the speaker? Seeing none, what's the committee's recommendation?
4-0-0 to pass.
Senator Waters.
I move to approve the committee's recommendation.
Second.
That's the pleasure of the Senate. That is adopted. Any discussion on the motion? Any debate on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? Seeing a clear majority, that passes. Welcome to State Your House. Lovely to have you. Next, I would like to invite our guest speaker for the evening, Dean Dana, the Vice President for Student Life and Inclusive Excellence and the Dean of Students.
Thank you very much. This is a truly bittersweet moment for me because officially, this will be the last time I visit this Senate. And I've been here for 40 years. And we can start to do the math. And I've seen lots of senators, lots of executives, lots of different times. And I have to be careful because I noticed that when I've been taking a trip down memory lane, I've gotten to be sort of emotional. And tonight I thought I'd take just a little trip with you. If you can imagine 40 years ago, when none of you in this room were born, except for maybe advisors to Delco. And what was going on in the world then? It was just the beginning of technological advancements that we couldn't even begin to imagine today. I remember that I wrote my doctoral dissertation and I had to have it typed on a regular typewriter, which maybe you've never even seen. And we didn't know how to type, so I hired somebody and she charged $1 a page. And the thing was 260 pages. And every time you would send it in, somebody on my committee would make some change. And so that would change every page number. And so on the 8th iteration of this, when we were quite broke, I said to the person helping me type, I said, well, you have to really make this look like it's a finished deal, because I can't afford to pay you anymore. And she said, well, don't worry, because I just got something called an IBM Selection. And it had this little daisy wheel that you could stick in, and it would hold 7 pages of text. So when I arrived here at the University of Maine in August of 1985, I was one of the first people here to get a computer. And I got a Zenith computer. And it was a computer that you had to program to use. It was a personal computer, but you had to program it. And it took something called, I think it was called DOS, DOS. And so to like type 5 words, you had to program the damn thing. And so we never used it. And then all of a sudden, you see where we're at today. But the beautiful thing was that students then and students now are in remarkable ways exactly the way they've always been. Full of curiosity, interest in the world around them, wanting to make a difference. There's a sense of interest and empathy that exudes from the students. It's what kept me here for 40 years. Is that students matter, and the University of Maine is a very special place because students come here hoping that they will have a perch to greatness, that they'll do something big. And it turns out that every student who comes to UMaine, like you, does something really big. So if you talk to people across the state and across the nation, and you meet doctors and lawyers and teachers and legislators and scientists and foresters, and you meet people working in aquaculture or political science, they all sat with UMaine and the Black Bear. So they're affecting the trajectory of the world. And for me, to have had the privilege to have anything to do with that is a miracle. So I hope that everything you do, you will do with an intention of being a decent human being. That you have a lot of power. You have it in this room. You can snap your fingers and make things happen. But what builds a life and makes a community is that you actually care. So you don't have to worry so much about being important. Have to worry about being kind. I follow the golden rule, which is a simple one. It's do unto others as you would wish done unto you. Some days it's more difficult than others, but it's sort of a redeeming factor. So I'm sort of a nihilist. I think, well, one of these days I'll reach my bitter end. And when I do, I'll know I'll be able to say I did the best I could do. That's all I would ask for you too. So if you think about all the history that's come in the last 40 years and everything that will come in the next 40 years when you get to be my age, you'll think, wow, the world changes, but it doesn't. So keep the good things, try to change the bad things. Remember that the light is better than the dark. That you should push aside all the encouragement to be separate and isolating. You should push it back with a firm heart. You should reach out. You should show love and compassion to people. And when you don't feel much like doing it for others, ask somebody to do it for you. And you'll be able to send out a lifeline. And as you do that, you'll have lives that are quite magnificent. So I'm a big fan of The Wizard of Oz, and I know that when they're skipping down the yellow brick road and the lights come on and the colors come up, that's what you have to look forward to. So I bid you all adieu and thank you so much.
On behalf of student government, we got you a cake, courtesy of our membership chair, Senator Warren.
Oh, very nice, thank you.
Please,
Oh, we could have.
Don't worry about it.
I'll stay and you guys eat. And I'll stay a little bit. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks to the bosses down there for getting me here tonight. They've done a good job.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that, this is certainly a bittersweet moment. I think, I speak for all of us to just simply be honored to have ever been able to work, alongside Dr. Dana. I really do appreciate not just all of the support you've given this body and the people within it, but me personally. I mean, you genuinely change people's lives every day. You're going to be hugely missed, but you've also served your time, and we're very excited to see where you go next, and we wish you the best. So thank you.
Thank you. I've got 3 grandkids who are 5, 3, and 0.8, and my wife's been retired for two years, and I've got 3 adult status daughters, and they're all saying, you know, let's see some more of you, so it'll work out.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we will move into our executive reports, starting with the president.
Alrighty, folks. I was assuming that was going to happen.
Senator Ricker.
I motion to limit all reports to 2 minutes max. 3 minutes max.
I do not hear a second.
Second.
Did I hear a second?
I second.
Okay,
Okay, how about we put it down, say your motion again.
Okay, I motion to limit all individual reports in this meeting to 3 minutes.
Second.
Thank you.
if that is the pleasure of the Senate, that is adopted. Any discussion on the motion? Any debate on? Director Mills?
I agree that some reports can take a while, but I think if anyone's reports are the most important, it will absolutely be the executives, especially the president and vice president. So I think if this doesn't get changed in the future, we should consider at least excluding executives, because if anyone has the most important stuff to say, it might be out of them.
Any new points for debate? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining, seeing a clear majority, that passes. Let me pull up my clock and discussion will be limited, or reports will be limited to 3 minutes each. Great. We will now move into executive reports, starting with the president.
All right, we are still participating in the It's Personal campaign, and it is wrapping up this week. So if you haven't gotten your things in and you intend to, please make sure you get those to the student government offices. That box will be there until
22nd.
the 22nd. And yeah, so please be supportive of that. For old business, VPSO hiring has wrapped. That will come later. It will be a discussion, so be prepared for that. And I want to apologize because I totally forgot about my academic affairs meeting this past Friday. It totally slipped my mind among the VPSO stuff. That's absolutely my bad. And I will be here this Friday. It's in bold on my GCal. So I do really encourage, I heard last time there was only one member. This is going to be a pretty big project, so I encourage you guys to get involved in this. And additionally, I planned a meeting with Senator Thompson with Provost Marzilli coming up a little bit later, December 5th. He's a busy guy. Moving into new business, myself and Vice President Peterson had a conversation today with Provost Volin and Vice President Sparks about the student or the strategic re-envisioning process. I think we expressed our disappointment in their handling in terms of student relations. And they were very receptive of that, and they were honest about that. And they committed to us that they would be doing better in that regard. The plan moving forward, I was invited about an hour ago to tomorrow's 9 o'clock meeting about the issue. And I've cleared my schedule to make that. So cabinet will be run by the vice president tomorrow. And we're also, I think myself and Vice President Peterson did a good job expressing those concerns. And we have a plan moving forward that will push student involvement, and we'll continue to push it until we see it happen. Moving on to the meeting with the Board of Trustees Chair, myself and BOT Rep Britton had a conversation about the student trustee selection committee process. This is something that I am kind of doing on behalf of the entire system. It's a project that's bigger than UMaine, but it needs to get done. I think we're the people to do it. And then we also talked about a potential trustee town hall, which I think would be exciting. And then finally, I think my time is up. So. Okay, update on our budget conversations about the activity fee. The financial revisions are going through tonight. That's a good first step. The following meeting after this break, I'm going to be working on clearing out some sort of policy revisions. That will be the next step. And then following that, I'm going to be coming with a presentation to the Senate with 3 options, one with a full raise, one with a mid raise, and one with no raise, and what that will look like. So everybody's informed. And we can make a decision on what we want to send to the student body in referendum and a report.
Thank you. Now for my reports, the Black Bear Orno Express, a gentleman affiliated with them reached out to me and they were looking for students to sit on their committee. This committee is made up of Orno and University of Maine stakeholders who provide or receive the bus service. The group meets a few times a year to discuss and coordinate the bus operating schedule, service hours, as well as advertising and outreach to improve the service for students, faculty, staff, and residents. Including a variety of interested and affected parties will help us ensure we are serving those that rely on the bus and reaching a wide audience of prospective riders. I have also put the mental health committee in touch with Sergeant Dover regarding the Comfort Canine project. All interested parties are urged to join that committee in that discussion. I'm continuing my work on updating the standing rules with a new format and diction. I'm starting with new format and then changing the actual stuff that I want to the format. It'll probably all go to public road at the same time. And I'm also now a part of a discussion with a senator and a few other community leaders regarding a new land acknowledgement that is unique to UMSG Inc., considering we're unique from the university. Obviously, we want to make it as respectful as possible, make sure that it's not overstepping anywhere, and just making sure that it actually means something. There's a lot of really good land acknowledgements in the state of Maine, and there's a lot of really good advice and opinion pieces that I've been reading about it. So if anybody is super passionate about it, talk to either myself or Senator Cowan, and we'd love to hear your advice. And that is the end of my report. Next is the Vice President of Financial Affairs.
Hey y'all, so I had my first meeting with the foundation on our emergency savings account, and it's went really well. And the easy part will actually be creating the account, the harder part will be acquiring the market of donors. So we're gonna be looking for a lot of like alumni connections and that kind of thing, so if anyone has like a casual spreadsheet of all of this. We're gonna start pulling all. But yeah, so that was really exciting, and then we have some kind of partners with the financial policy edits. There's 2 lines that we're adding in for pay to play to clear up some vague wording and then make us okay with our annual audit. And then our starting unallocated for today will be $56,645.66. We had 4 returns to unallocated from ultimate, women's ultimate, men's volleyball, Hillel, and Pima Club, totaling $9,451.06. That's pretty nice. And then we have athletic training and consent agenda for 3:15, and then you'll be hearing from Renaissance and staff. And then we have an executive session that end report.
Student organizations.
We heard from the 2 clubs SFE last week, astronomy and ballet, but you heard from astronomy, who will be joining us in our next meeting, they can make it. Just wrapping up a few procedural / administrative stuff before I leave. You're gonna see one more revision to the SOAR. Probably most of them first, yeah. I'm rewriting the student org handbook, and it's just a few changes that made on the website, but it's very, background stuff. Important.
Thank you. Student entertainment.
251 student tickets last week at Black Bear Cinema, and the SEC has finally narrowed down some artists, so you can still join SEC Mondays 1 to 2, but you will not be in the concert committee and report.
Thank you. Student leadership.
Hi everyone, I'm just finalizing some last plans for the Senate retreat. I'll drop all the needed information by the end of this week, so everyone can plan accordingly. The professional development will be on December 5th at 6 p.m. and the activity will follow right after the development piece. And I'm still planning out exactly where all that's gonna happen, so that's what I'll drop by the end of the week. I'm wrapping up some other business with a yearbook company before starting to template the year in review book for Senate. So if you want to be involved in building the year in review book, let me know. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Advisor discussion.
I'd like to yield my time to President Tripp if he has anything else to say in his report.
I appreciate it.
Great.
Yes.
50 seconds.
So, like I said, I want to make sure that we're continuing the conversation each week about the activity fee and EDC things. This is going to be one of the biggest projects, student issues that UMSG I think is going to tackle. And like I said, I plan on having those 3 options together. I think I'm at a point where I'm not 100% sure if I wanted to originally do the whole $22 increase, but I think it makes sense to consider a middle ground and kind of see what that would look like so that all options are out on the table and we fully understand what we're putting forth to the students. I want to correct a previous statement I made as well about UNH's activity fee being higher than ours. It's actually not. The $99 is the full year, which means we technically pay more than UNH. But the difference is that their student governments are able to charge their students per events, we're not. They have more students and they have separate activity fees for their sport clubs. So we are supporting on, I still, like, when you crack it down, we're still operating at a larger scale with less. And that's just the reality. I'm happy to keep it that way. Like I said, no changes have to happen to the activity fee at all. But I've also gotten into contact with Vice President of Parks and the board about how that process will go forward. And that will be part of my presentation, is explaining exactly how that will go down. But yeah, I just want to make sure everybody is on the same page, and please, as always, I have a booking link now on my thing, which is really great. So if you ever want to have a conversation about it one-on-one or as a group, I would love to. And that goes to any student. I hear, I can only address the frustration that I hear, and I will not address it through mediums like Yik Yak. So if you really do have an issue, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speakers? Seeing none, we'll move into periodic reports, starting with faculty, Senate, student representative.
No report.
University of Maine Board of Trustees, rep.
was a board meeting this past Monday, which was yesterday. There were, first in citizen comment, there were a lot of students, alumni and faculty system-wide speaking on, asking the university to divest from Israel and adopt the Jerusalem Declaration on anti-Semitism. A lot of those students were also speaking about the board's intentions to modify their policies 212 and 214, saying that the policy change limits speech. And later in the meeting, the board clarified that the intention was to eliminate restrictions on university employees' free speech. But in case you're wondering, the red line section that they were discussing says there shall be no restriction at any system institutions on these fundamental rights, although the university may prohibit speech that that's what university may prohibit speech. So they're getting rid of that part, but they're also getting rid of the part that says there should be no restriction at any system institutions. So that's why people were that. I think so. Anyway, there were also some students speaking about diversifying UMaine investment into buildings outside of STEM departments. Then enrollment is up across the board with aggregate return rates up like from 50% to 75%, which is surprising and good. The university has also reached a tentative agreement with the University of Maine Professional Staff Association, a collective bargaining agreement. Over the next 5 years, they're spending $2 million on a program called BOOMI, which will unify the system course catalog, transcripts, and like streamline things for online students. And then this year is the 70th anniversary of the Burson Astronomy Center. And then Deacon already talked about our meeting with Trip. And then on trustee selection, I had told you all that the graduate student was not being considered anymore. I found out that they are now being reconsidered. Not obviously in time for to be approved at the same time as the undergrad, which has already happened. He was at the meeting, but potentially could be approved and inducted in the spring. And
Thank you. FVPC chair.
Hi, everyone. Lately I've just been working on some resolutions, that I'm gonna grow eventually. They're just concerning the FEPC guidelines, just clean up stuff. And I've been finalizing the timeline for the executive elections, which will go through FEPC sometime in the next, few weeks.
Thank you. Student legal representative.
Hi, earlier today I met with Sean, who is currently meeting with an average of 2 students per day. He settled the case he'd been working on against the avenue for unfair leasing practices and has connected with the university, who's working with their lawyers in hopes of ending this sort of behavior. He also would like to make the Maine Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division aware of these issues. He said that the Trevor Wallace show at the CCA went very well, and he's been working with BPSC Lehman to plan for the spring show. They're currently in the bidding process with a potential artist. He's also preparing a report for President Tripp about the university's amnesty policy. And on December 11th at noon, Sean and I will be hosting an informational lunch session on unfair leasing and tenant rights. If anyone has any suggestions for topics they would like covered during this session, please let Sean or I know. End of report.
Thank you. Graduate Student Senate rep.
Right. Not much to report, as many of you know, the motion of no confidence is coming up this Friday. That is where Dean Cody Varma and Scott Delcourt are going to be sitting down with USG and discussing their side of the story of what's been going on, and essentially we'll be finding out about whether or not they rule in favor of the no confidence order. So stay tuned for that. There was also a document of an updated wording for the no confidence order that was put out as well. I'm just gonna be asking for permission just to post it and see if they're okay with it. So you can see it on the chat that is from me. And the other thing is that there are office elections going on, including for our liaison, that being Harrison Goldfield, and he will be transitioning out of GSG as the liaison role, and we'll be seeing a new individual coming in. We will still be sticking around for the rest of the semester. And report.
Thank you. Old Orno Town Council liaison?
Okay, this week, council used this meeting for like general housekeeping, such as finalizing dates for the rest of the council meetings for this year and a little bit of next year. Council also awarded some staff like for the years of service. Other than that, nothing happened during this week's meeting and report.
Thank you. Old Town City Council?
This week, the Old Town City Council reappointed staff to the Old Town Housing Authority Board with their terms ending and expiring in 2020. Other than that, the rest of the meeting was devoted to approving a liquor license and was swiftly adjourned and report.
Thank you. Military and Veteran Student Affairs?
No report.
Director of Communications? Not here. Okay, go ahead.
This week I've been working on reaching out to clubs about Spotlight and brainstorming fun post ideas.
Thank you. Director of Technology?
No report.
Security Representative?
No report.
And Recruiter Rep.
No report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speakers? President Tripp?
No question, but I have a point of information for the Senate, because I forgot it in my report. The esports team or the esports arena has invited us to participate in a Mario Party session on their 24-hour live stream on Friday. And they invited myself and asked for 4 of us total to play as UMSG members against each other. I have given the first dibs to our Director of Technology because I know he's a gamer. But I'm gonna open that up to first come, first serve. So send me an email, like literally right now, if you want to do that. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the speaker? Representative Merchant?
Just or in relation to President Tripp, what time is that?
Oh, yeah, it's from 12 to 3 on Friday, and you have to be available for the whole thing, please.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move into reports of standing committees and we'll move on to memberships.
Subway tonight, I probably went a little bit overboard on the veggie delights here, because it looks like I'm interested in those, but you can grab them after, it's all vegetarian stuff. And then cake for Dean Dana, he's not here anymore, but please grab some more, please, he's the only one that can. So, don't be afraid of ruining, it's free game, so, yeah, thank you very much for the report.
Thank you. Policy and procedure?
This week was super busy. We had changes to the financial guidelines. And then we did the act to urge on student email privacy that you'll hear. We finalized exec eval questions, which not to spoil them, but they're the same as last year, but with new names. Because I just liked them. I think they worked good. I want to do exec evals not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after next Tuesday, because who's gonna come next Tuesday?
It's not gonna be a meeting.
There's no meeting next Tuesday? It's gonna be the Tuesday after that one. The next Senate meeting.
Yes.
And then we put through a change to the hiring policies, just closing up the policy gap in those. And then we didn't do anything else this week, and I guess I'm getting stuff next week, but I haven't formally heard yet, except for tonight. Like 3 people said they were bringing stuff, so. Whew. And please come to Polypro. Please come to Polypro.
Thank you. Political activism?
College Republicans are currently have a soup kitchen in Bangor. Thanks. College Democrats are going to Augusta on Friday to help out the state's recount. I believe Senator, so that's correct. Yes. Okay. And nonpartisan political clubs meeting in their usual location every week. Bridge USA is meeting every other week in their usual location in Boudreaux Hall and a report.
Thank you. Services?
So 150 out of the 300 gift certificates have been given out before Thanksgiving. So whoa, seems like we're running into the same issues as the movie tickets. We might run out before we get to spring break, but you know, maybe that's a good thing. And we have a report.
Thank you. Academic affairs?
Oh, no report.
Are there any questions for the speakers? Senator Warren?
Point of information, I forgot to say this, but happy birthday to Senator Crowdy and Senator Ramatredge, so.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the speakers? President Tripp?
This question is for Senator Waters. I'm just curious in terms of the consideration of hiring policies revisions, with that being a pretty big deal, and why that wasn't reported on the Senate that was being considered in Parliament last week.
Was it not? I'm pretty sure it was.
It was not.
Well, we can wait till the next meeting if you want to, if you want to motion to table it, if you think I didn't give enough time, but we have already considered it in Polypro. And respectfully, as Polypro chair, I said 3 times in the chat that when Polypro was meeting, and I say that every week. So I do feel like, I thought I said it last week, but even if I didn't, I feel like I gave ample opportunity for any senator who wanted to attend policy and procedure to attend.
President Tripp?
I would just suggest moving forward that those things do be reported, because I'm not somebody who consistently would go to Polypro. I think it's important that I remain out of it, but these are big things that these need discussion. And you're right, it was passed by, or considered by Polypro last year, but it was also killed by the Senate. So I just think it's.
No, it wasn't. That was a different resolution.
Right, but its policies are the same. Changes are the same, correct?
No.
The topic is the same.
The topic is the same.
The changes, okay, so what are the changes? We'll get there. We'll get there.
Any other questions for the speakers? I do have a question for Senator Waters. How many voting senators have attended Polypro this past Friday?
1. But as many as we have were able to attend Polypro. I don't think it's my fault that people are not attending Polypro. I wish I had 4 voting senators.
Any other questions for the speakers? Seeing none, we'll move into reports of special committees, starting with student mental health.
Hi, everyone. Everybody is doing well. I know it's a busy part of the semester. I've been asked to sit on the Comfort Canine Partnering team with Sergeant Jamie Dover, who we met last week. And I'll be attending the first meeting tomorrow morning at 8:30. It's going to be with Ms. Flag and a few other representatives of the campus, including one of the students who works at UBAC and a few others, and Student Life. I'm greatly looking forward to it. That was also the topic at this week's committee meeting, which I'm thankful for everybody who showed up. We talked about some really great ways of opening up visibility about the Comfort Canines and how to mitigate possible miscommunication, which are things that Officer Dover had already mentioned, but we wanted to take into consideration as students. Specifically, we don't want the miscommunication coming out that it's going to be anything but a Comfort Canine is huge, as well as other things that I should bring up as both a student and chair of the committee. And that was all we talked about in the report.
Thank you. Student Symposium Committee.
Last week, we reviewed recruitment materials on volunteer training as well as on fundraising. We discussed actions to reach out to classes and clubs to get volunteers, and to reach out to professors to see if they could possibly cancel class on the symposium day next. End of report.
Thank you. Student Dining Affairs? No report. Are there any questions for the speakers? Seeing none, we'll move into representative board reports, starting with Cans.
Everyone, we're still continuing on with the constitutional reform. We're hoping to get this, the rest of the constitution at least rewritten by Saturday, and then by then we'll just send it to everyone who needs it, and we'll have it reviewed over with. Yeah, end report.
Thank you. Honors College?
Okay, hi, once again, well, May Day New Blackout raffle started today. Might have seen us in the Union over by Union Central. We'll be tabling again on Thursday from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. and then next Monday. They'll all come to show support. $1 in the raffle buys 3 meals for families, which means that each meal comes to about, I think, just under a third of $1, which is great. And they go to families all across Maine. You will not hear me stop talking about this. We are also having a trivia night on Thursday for honors, where teams
will be signing up. This is our first event ever with the Honors LLC from Reslick, which is exciting, as well as working with just the Honors College as a whole in this AB. So that is a really great way of connecting everybody and getting the word out. Another note for events, finals week is coming up fast and we're planning our finals takeover for Coleman Hall, where we'll be having snacks, self-care items, and making it a safe place to study. And the report.
Thank you. I have the IFC Council report. We are currently in the process of reviewing applications for our incoming executive board and are excited with the candidates so far. The incoming executive board will be officially announced the first week of December, and the Greek Gala will be taking place on Monday, December 9th in Wellington. And with that report, some important things are going on within the Greek community right now, and I had to schedule an emergency meeting. That's the end of that report. Do you have something else?
No.
Okay. Moving on to senior class council.
The Senior Class Council will hold a fundraising event this Wednesday, tomorrow from 8 p.m. until 11 p.m. at OVA. This event will be for those that are 21 plus. A portion of sales from the Roll Berry cocktail will be donated to us. So if you're 21 plus, join us. If you're not, tell your friends that are. As we continue to fundraise, we're beginning to plan senior week events. So if you have any recommendations, thoughts, or concerns, please come talk to me. End of report.
Thank you. Student athlete council.
So women's soccer lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Men's basketball lost to Quinnipiac. Women's basketball lost to Harvard. Football lost to U1. But hockey beat BU. We got some upcoming games / meets. So swim and dive has an upcoming invite to TRI. That's a 4-day meet. Football has a game against UNH at home this Saturday. Men's basketball has a game against Richmond this Wednesday, and women's basketball has games against BU on the road and a home game this Sunday against Quinnipiac. For some statistics news, 50-50 fundraising is going well, raising a lot of money. And we just had our November meeting yesterday. I wasn't in attendance, but it seemed productive. And a report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speakers? President Tripp.
Just another point of information, the results are in and Senator Michoud and Senator Sparks will be joining me for Mario Party on Friday. Thank you, guys.
Any other questions for the speakers? Seeing none, we'll move into community association reports, starting with Jack.
All right, y'all. I'm a little beat. I'm a little exhausted. Friends and family piece has got me through the ropes. Drink a Celsius. Hopefully it perks me up for what I'm about to say. But finalizing the plans for Friends and Family Feast. All the food is paid for, all the food is ordered. Amazing. So look forward to Thursday. It's like small logistical things, in terms of like ordering stuff, but Family Feast is all set and ready to go for Thursday. We have 30 volunteers for serving. And we have 9 volunteers for setup, and we have 8 volunteers for cleanup. And additionally, Sigma Chi, I believe. Sigma Chi. Right, Sigma Chi reached out, their volunteer chair reached out to see if, we need volunteers. So we reached out to them as well, and we're like, yeah, we need volunteers for cleanup, yeah. So they're gonna help us out, having some fraternities come and help us is huge. Turnout is expected to be, I don't know what turnout's gonna look like, but I hope it's huge. Because we have a lot of food, but it's gonna be an awesome event. There's gonna be a lot of food, y'all, and I hope to see you all there on Thursday. Because it's the biggest event, at least for Shaq, of the semester, and it's killing me, y'all, but I'm happy to be doing it. So, and the report.
Thank you. Wildstein.
Tomorrow is Trans Day of Remembrance, a day to honor all of the lives lost to transphobic hate crimes in the past year. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Wildstein is holding a candlelight vigil in honor of it. So it's tomorrow on the Folklore Library steps at 6 p.m. And additionally, while not as glamorous as Friends and Family Feast, much smaller affair, we are having Gay Thanksgiving on Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. in the co-run. We will have free food, games, and good times. So, end of report.
Thank you. International Student Association.
I was a team, everyone, for the last coffee hour was great, all the food was gone, just trying to 20 minutes. For this week's coffee, we'll be offering a variety of sandwiches from Charleston. And we do have a very good, the team, folks, it's amazing. The next years. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speakers? Director Mills.
Question directed at, Representative Guzman, there you go, yeah. What time is, Friends and Family Feast again?
Friends and Family Feast is from 6 to 8 p.m. tomorrow, and I recommend getting there at 6 p.m. or earlier tomorrow. I mean, Thursday.
Oh, my bad, my brain is, can you tell I'm exhausted?
Yeah, 6 to 8 p.m. on Thursday. I recommend getting there early because last year, the line literally was out of the union, by like 6:15. Not 6:15, it was like 5 last year, so 5:15.
Are there any other speaker? Senator McLean.
I have a question for Senator Mishu. So his services.
Unfortunately, we're not in a period for us in the kind of. Any other questions for the speakers? Yeah, I'm looking for a point of information.
We have information. I have a question for Senator Mishu. Is services committee still meeting on Friday at 1?
Right, so it'll be canceled. But unless anyone has something really big they wanted to bring, or like they wanted to bring anything, I would just not do it. I don't have anything right now. So if you wanna, please let me know.
Any other questions for the speakers? Seeing none, if it is the pleasure of the Senate, we will now enter a 10-minute recess. We will now reconvene. Moving on to the consent agenda, we have EBC 136 for athletic training for $315. Senator Fang.
Second.
Hearing a second, if that's the pleasure of the Senate, that is adopted. It turns out I should have been calling for a discussion and debate on the consent agenda, but I've just been skipping over it for like timeliness and precedent. So we're gonna bring it back. Any discussion on the motion? Any debate? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? Seeing a clear majority, that passes. Senator Fang.
Point of information, if you wanted to debate specific items on a consent agenda hypothetically, how would you do that?
So once I mentioned the consent agenda, if you wanted to raise your hand and then you suspend the rules. And then you say, move this specific line item to new business. You can't do it like that, or you can say, I'd like to suspend the rules and consider the consent agenda line by line. There's a few different ways you can phrase it. So it's a motion to suspend the rules, which does need to. That can be our verbal for the day. Thank you, Senator Fang. Senator Bowman. That is any way you can do that. But that would create like a second step to it of say somebody suspended the rules. And then somebody else yells division, that would call for me to like take the vote seriously, essentially, so it could just be an extra step. So. Seeing nothing in unfinished business, we'll move into new business, starting with 45S EBC 135 for UMaine Renaissance for $1,270.
Hi, good evening. My name is Julia Violet.
My name is Reagan Netter.
I'm the business manager of UMaine Renaissance.
And I'm the president of UMaine Renaissance.
So if you don't know what we do on campus, we are the all trouble a cappella group. We come audition out of University Singers, which is a collegiate choir on campus. We currently have 12 members, and every winter and spring we go on a tour of Maine and New England. Sometimes we go northern Maine, Canada. But this winter we'll be going through local areas of Maine, then we'll be going around southern Maine, into Massachusetts as well as Rhode Island, going to middle schools and high schools to perform for students, workshop with their classes, their music classes and choirs, to spread the love of music and to encourage kids to continue to pursue music from high school into college. And we are asking for money to help with our lodging. We pay for gas, food, sheet music, all out of our own budget of fundraising and money that way. So we're asking for help with lodging as we will have performances out of the state. For some local housing, we're staying at family houses in Maine, but like I said, once we're going out of state, we have less connections there, so we would need a hotel for a couple nights.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speakers? Senator DeWarne?
How long is this for then?
It's a week, so it's starting on Monday, January 13th, and it's ending on January 18th.
We're having for 2 of those nights that we don't have local lodging.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the speaker? Vice President Wong?
Not a question, but there was a mistype. The actual amount is $1,320. $50 is for sheet music. That was somehow lost and it got copied to our agenda.
You said it's supposed to be 1,320?
Yes.
Okay, that is how it's written on the resolution, so nobody needs to make an amendment. Even if it's wrong on the agenda, it's right on the resolution, so we're all set. Any other questions for the speaker, Senator Swartz?
Well,
Any other questions for the speaker? Excuse me, Representative Levack?
yeah, so we had a bake sale just a week ago, and we also had a t-shirt fundraiser. This is our 25th anniversary of the group being formed, so we make t-shirts that have 25 on the back, and the number 25 is written with every member's name that's been in the group. And so we did that through like custom made, they could order it themselves. So those are ones we made in total, combining the funders, we made $800 with that.
Any other questions for the speaker, Vice President Oldfield?
Do you expect funding requests for, you said you do them in the fall and the spring, or one just depends on which semester? It just depends on the year. Sometimes like it's up to the business manager whether we go on tour in the spring. We haven't decided that yet, but we're just right now.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the speaker? Representative Levack?
If you do perchance do it in the spring, would it be to the same like length or capacity as this one would be, or is this an anomaly going like out of state?
So it usually goes like back and forth between semesters. So if we go south in the winter, we go north in the spring. So we try to go like Aroostook County area where there's like less, access to schools and to music. So, and then we maybe go to Canada because that's something that they usually do. But yeah, we haven't thought that far ahead yet. We're just focusing on this semester.
Any other questions for the speakers? Seeing none, what's the committee's recommendation?
600 off the paths as amended.
Call on and news. I've heard both. Senator
Stanford. I move to accept the committee's recommendation.
Second. Hearing in a second, if that's the pleasure of the Senate, that is adopted. Any discussion on the motion? Any debate? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Seeing a clear majority, that passes. Welcome to stay or go, totally up to you. Next, we will move on to 45S EBC 137 for the Student Athletic Advisory Council for the amount of $1,050.
God, I feel so. Anyways, so I originally requested like 1,500, it got amended down to 1,050. I'm good with that. So like new development that recently came in, talked to the presidents, apparently they don't want $800 for the t-shirts. Don't know why, but I want to hear a motion from a senator to amend this policy, or I guess budget for just $250.
Let's go back to it when we get to a period of debate. Do you have any other?
Just the rest of the stuff, $200 for food for trivia nights and $50 for Valentine's Day grams. For the Valentine's Day grams were put on by the M Club. We just wanted to assume that duty because it was fun. Write cool things during Valentine's Day on some grams. So yeah, fun community building activities.
Awesome. Are there any questions from the speaker, President Trevor?
I think I know the answer to this, but just for the Senate sake, did SAC receive a budget this year from student?
A budget from student government? No. We do all of our funding basically from fundraising. While we do have some supplemental funds from the athletic department, those haven't come in yet, to my knowledge. So most of our fundraising funds actually go to the main event, which is an award show for student athletes by student athletes. Yeah, pretty much it.
Did the vice president of financial affairs have an input on that question or? Yeah, any other questions for the speech? Senator Bone?
So you were mentioning amending value for t-shirts to be $250?
No t-shirts, no t-shirt line item. Let's just get rid of that right now. $250, $200 for food for trivia night, $50 for Valentine's Day members. That's all I'm asking. All I want.
Great. Any other questions for the speech? Seeing none, the committee's recommendation.
600 passes amended.
You second. There's a couple of you out there. Senator Kang.
Point of information, as amended, like we are just gonna proceed with it, or do we need a formal motion to?
You can just send it when we get to debate.
Yeah.
All right, Senator Weber.
I move to accept the committee's recommendation.
Second. Here in a second, if that's the pleasure of the Senate, that is adopted. Any discussion? Any debate? Senator Micho.
Move to amend the resolution for $250.
Second.
Here in a second, if that's the pleasure of the Senate, that's adopted. Any discussion on the motion? Any debate on the motion? All those in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? Seeing a clear majority, that passes. No. That was an amendment. We are now actually. Which now reads Sam's teachers. 250. President Tripp.
A representative board budget of $250. That's my whole thing.
Any other debate on the new resolution as amended? Senator Martone?
It's nice that CC like amended the motion, like to be brought down in numbers as opposed to being brought up. That's it.
Any other debate? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? Seeing a clear majority, that passes. I'm looking for a motion to suspend the rules to put 45S POL 140 at the bottom of new business. Does that sound right? Senator DeWarn.
I motion to suspend the rules of 45S POL 140. 140 at that point.
Second.
Here in a second, if that's the pleasure of the Senate, that is adopted. Any discussion? Any debate? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? Seeing a clear majority, that passes. We will now move on to 45S POL 141 and act to adopt formatting financial rules.
And to be clear, that motion was requested by Senator Waters, so we're on the same page. All right.
What resolution was it?
114.
That should be, no, I'm gonna need you to do, I'm gonna send you something else too. Okay. But just get it ready to go. Okay, folks, so today's the day that we begin to move forward with financial policy revisions. As we're all aware, this is something that I am focusing on for the time being. This is off center. This will be kind of like my project over the break. To come forward with pretty much a nice big old package of policy reform on top of just formatting updates. But this is step one. I started to go through the document and essentially do at the same time a format update and a policy change update. And I got to the 13th page of the resolution and realized it just was not going to work. I wasn't even halfway through. Instead of giving you a 40-page resolution with line by line changes, I've decided instead to do it as an act to adopt or to amend in its entirety. The financial policies, to put this into perspective, or just a heads up, it does require a 2/3 vote to pass, but I think I can do that. But I sent the part into the Senate, so I'm hoping everybody reviewed it in some regard, in case you have questions. But there is one part that I would like to center right now, and I just have to forward it to.
Policies.
Okay, I'm forwarding an email that I sent to colleagues earlier. Okay. It's just one thing I need to bring your attention to. Okay. So if you could slow scroll through it, but then stop, and section O of, part 1, section 1. Okay. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Oh. Does anybody have questions about the whole thing while we're here, so we can do something productive? Anybody have questions about the process? Yeah.
You said this is just for the wording and grammar, and then there's another one separate later, right?
Yep, so the mentality behind this, I think that it's very clear, if any of you have looked through the financial policy, something that you all have. They're written fine, they're written definitely in a policy oriented way. But something that happens with living documents like this changes as they go through. They get changed little by little, line by line, but never updated in full to be kind of put all together. So that's kind of what this was. Something else I did is I did simplify the jargon. I feel as though sometimes the overtly policy oriented conversations and things like that can be a little bit of a barrier to entry for students who aren't policy experts. So without touching the substance, I did simplify the language a little bit. And also whoever wrote them clearly did not have Grammarly. So there was that too. There was a lot of like misspellings and stuff like that. But yeah, to be clear, this is just an update. But here, hit a play, stop here. Okay, so this is technically an addition. If you flip to your financial policies now, it's currently not in there. The issue, however, is that this was a revision that was made last year and never updated in the financial policies. Whoopsie. So this is not actually changing anything, at least the first paragraph. I'll get to the points in just a second, but this is basically making sure that this is written into actually updated in our policy to let read through. And then yes, so those two bullet points are technically additions, but what they are is I felt like it was okay to include them here because this is something that we will be taking a look at in our policy revisions. So adding it another week and then it just didn't make sense. And I thought we could just have a conversation here. But I'm gonna let our BPFA kind of outline why we did that. And to be clear, it's a policy clarification, not a change. So.
Yeah, so the pay to play that we had previously left for a couple loopholes that auditors were not too appreciative of. Which allowed for double funding, so like, as you can, like, pay to play covers up to 75%. But it was also allowing for the remaining 25% to come from other UMSG funding, which was interpreted by auditors as like 100% UMSG, going against the exact policy. So they weren't too happy with that, so just to save us all that hassle, we just added the remaining balance must be paid by non-UMSG funds. And then another thing is that as of now, when it was not included, or that first bullet point, how it's now needs to be passed through the annual budget. Until now, it was like no difference between a normal UEC request and a pay to play request, except pay to play requests are now tied to a percentage. So it's good to just highlight to the annual budget instead of allowing it for a anytime rolling request. That's really it.
And this is how we currently, this is just updating the policies to read how we act. So again, no change in policy. In fact, this is something I would like to, I will be dramatically looking at, but it needs to be there to do so. So yeah, you can, I mean, that's really it. It's a long document. It passed Polypro. Thank you, Senator Thompson, for being there to pass it. And yeah, I guess that's really all I got, unless anybody else has questions.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, what's the committee's recommendation?
100 ought to pass.
Something like that.
I move to accept the committee's recommendation.
Second. Hearing a second, that's the pleasure of the Senate, that is adopted. Any discussion on the motion? Any debate? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? Seeing a clear majority, that passes. We will now move on to 45 SPOL 142, an act to urge the university against parent and student emails with outside influence.
I found my laptop, did not find my glasses, so I don't need help. Listen. Okay. This is a super simple act to urge. I tried to make it as bare bones as possible, just not like bare bones as possible, just to make sure that people have a full understanding of just. I have Spotify. There we go. I was listening to sounds. Okay. That just to make it bare bones and easily comprehensible as possible to the people we're sending it to. You guys don't have paper resolutions, so I'll read it for you.
I can put it down then. Paper copies of this?
No, there's no
Okay.
paper.
No, they wrote
That's fine.
Yeah, you should just keep that on because we're gonna keep presenting.
All right. All right, please hold.
All right, so basically, I don't know if you guys, I know you guys get them, that's what this resolution's about. Those emails that are to our university email addresses, our maine.edu email addresses, but they're not from people that are from maine.edu, and they're not from university officials, they're not from organizations on campus, they're not from different facilities on campus. They are from the Ave, possibly. I got a Dormify one last week. A lot of other people probably got those too. They use campus groups for one too, which I think is highly dangerous because if you're using campus groups for soliciting and people put unsubscribe, they unsubscribe from our emails too, and all other campus groups on campus.
Point of order, can you by chance forward me it? I don't see it in like the email of like all the documents. Thank you.
I think. Gosh, I can't. I hope this works. Thank you. But yeah, so this reads, since it's not on the board, an act to urge the university against sharing students' email addresses with outside entities, whereas currently various university entities are sharing lists of student emails to outside entities. Resolve, the university will value the privacy of students and withhold sharing our emails outside of the university. If resolved, if passed, this would be communicated to the Office of Student Life and the Office of Student Records via email. Those are the two offices that I found definitively have. So like, it's really hard to find out who's sharing our email addresses. I wanted to do this like 2 months ago, and I've been trying to figure out who to send the act to urge to, because I can't figure out who is sharing them, and I can't.
So you can't share your emails. We don't share your emails. We can't share your emails. If you notice that when I send you things on a listserv, you can't see anyone else's emails. So we share 0 emails. Student records share 0 emails. The only thing that's allowed by the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act is directory information on individual students. And so that could be shared. Probably how things are being shared is by programs that are combing the internet or people making assumptions about your email addresses based on how personally that the record or the first name dot last name at UMaine.edu. But I can tell you that your email addresses are not being shared by up to outside entities. Period.
I also think the Dormify emails are in collaboration with the senior schools, and it's a fundraiser of theirs.
Is it really?
Yeah.
It did not appear like it, because it just linked me directly to a non-UMaine website.
I think that's true, but I think that that's probably also how that went through in terms
Senior
of.
schools can request directory information on students from student records, and student records has to give them to them as a Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act exception. So you're welcome to urge. However, your urge is heard and also obeyed.
Are there any other questions for the speaker? Senator Fang?
Can I ask you guys a question?
Sure.
Sure, I don't want. What about the ones that get sent out through campus groups? How would a company obtain that, you know?
Well, which one, what,
The Quitland one that sent to campus groups.
the what?
Quitland.
How they do,
That was a message that came from student wellness through campus groups. It was sponsored by a department on campus.
Okay.
Any other questions for the speaker? Senator McLean?
I know you mentioned that you're not sure who's sharing them, but like, do you have an idea of where they're being sent to, like, in general?
My inbox. So now that it's not this, I assumed that it was either the Office of Student Records or Student Life just because of how it was received. But honestly, debate kind of, we could just send this back to table it indefinitely. Until, so that I can just triple check it and just keep doing research and seeing on a better way to stop this than the act to urge, or if the act to urge needs to go to a different body on campus. Because I still believe in the resolved and the whereas, except for Office of Student Records and Student Life, since we just found out that they're not doing that because we have an awesome advisor. So I would welcome a senator, and can I make the motion if I'm presenting?
No.
Yeah, table this indefinitely until I find out what's actually going on, because I thought that was what was going on.
We can make that motion once we get into the debate, yeah. Any other questions for the speaker? Seeing none, what's the committee's recommendation?
100 off house.
Senator, excuse me, thank you, Senator, for, 100. Senator Burns.
I move to approve the committee's recommendation.
Second. Here in a second, if that's the pleasure of the Senate, that is adopted. Any discussion? Any debate? President Tripp?
Yeah, with these acts to urge, obviously this is coming from a good place, and that's not the problem here. But I would suggest, especially when we're making demands of the university on these things, that conversations be had with groups, especially if you're going to act to urge them. You need to have a conversation with them first. I've had a lot of situations where acts to urge have been introduced to the Senate. And it very much took a single meeting, talking to them and bringing it to their attention, that made things change. So that's just like moving forward. These acts to urges are only as powerful as they're used. And we used to have an issue where the Senate would just start throwing act to urges all the time. I think the act to urges should honestly be used very seldomly. They should be something that is absolutely concrete. And fact-based and data-driven, especially when we're speaking on behalf of the student body. That's what these are. This basically, if this would have passed, would say that the student body demands the Office of Student Life and Student Records to stop doing something they're not. And that does not look good on UMSG. And then I think it kind of does lose. And again, I don't think I think if this were to be true, absolutely, right? But I think that that's kind of where we need to approach these things, right? Because again, it's gonna delegitimize them when we're sending things that aren't actually. That's all.
Any other points for discussion? Any points for debate? Senator Martin?
I motion to table this until Senator Waters figures out.
Just say indefinitely, please.
Oh, what do you say?
Indefinitely.
Oh, I propose a motion to indefinitely suspend this.
I'll just do a point of order. The correct procedure to go about this, if you want the committee to keep working on it or wherever it was, you want to send it back to committee rather than table.
Refer. Motion to refer. I motion to refer this back to committee.
Here in a second, if that's the pleasure of the Senate, that's adopted. Any discussion? Any debate? All those in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? Seeing a clear majority, this will be referred back to the Policy and Procedure Committee.
I'm like the opposite of your push.
We will now move on to 45 SPLL 140 and act to reform hiring policies.
Okay. This one's here too.
Oh, okay, alright.
It's in the same email.
Alright. I'll just pull it up. I got you.
Raise your hand if you received a files for tonight email from Pam. And were these things included? Not all of them,
Only
okay.
the EBC one.
Okay, that's just speaking.
Yeah, I have point of information. The policy, the hiring policies was included, the act to urge was not.
Okay, so that is just again, Pam had to step in, please, disregard, we can handle it, so, okay.
Okay, I'll start going into it before, it pulls up. So many of you are new, so I'm gonna start with some basic knowledge on UMSG, because you haven't experienced the hiring committee yet. When we hire people, to work for us, the committees that hire them, that fill the resumes, that do the interviews, are made up of typically 3 people, 2 of which being one of our executive employees, and then one of which has to be a non-student employee, so a Pam, a Jeff, or a Sean. One of the main points of this resolution, there's other parts to it. One of the main points would be to add senators to the pool of people that can be chosen to be on hiring committees. They would not be required to be on hiring committees. It would not require a senator to be on a hiring committee. So hiring committees can exist the way they do now with this resolution. But this just adds it so that instead of having a pool of, I'm trying to count the employees in my head, 10 people, we would have a pool of 10 people plus 25 of the student senators to help make scheduling easier. And it's also, right now, you can see in the whereas, is currently, I said the only UMSG committee without opportunity for senator representation. I think execs committee doesn't, but that's because it's exec committee. And that one also says UMS Inc. On my version that I sent, it said UMSG Inc. So someone went back, it says it multiple times. My version, I promise, says UMSG Inc. So someone must have gone through with the Grammarly that thought we were UMS Inc. because that happens with my Grammarly too. Like even cabinet has 2 senators on it. Every other committee except the exec committee has senators on it. So this just brings it into uniform line with the rest of the committees that we have in student gov. So the resolved changes a portion of the hiring policies. When you change the hiring policies, you need 2/3 of a vote from this body. Just keep that in mind. It just adds and student senators to this little kind of list of the people that the president, when they build hiring committees, picks from. So like they pick from, right now it says volunteer basis among executive, non-student employees of UMSG. It used to say executives and non-student employees of UMSG, and then that says and student senators. That's the big change. I put it in bold so that you guys can see what I changed. Yeah, and then the second resolve says a single senator can serve on 2 hiring committees within a year. Elephant in the room, there was 1 person on polypro. So we decided to keep this, but because we didn't have a lot of people for input, I would welcome a senator who doesn't think that it's beneficial for this policy to strike that resolve. You guys have the power to do that. The reasoning behind it existing is that if multiple senators are volunteering, and this is as popular an opportunity as I predict it will be, I don't want it to be 1 senator that serves on every single hiring committee if 3 or 4 are volunteering every time. I don't want it to be the same person every time, just so that we have diversity in hiring committees the same way that we wouldn't want the same executive employees on the hiring committee every single time. And then last resolve, the Senate will be provided with application materials upon confirmation of the chosen applicant. 2 things, you've never been to a hiring committee or hiring confirmation, we already do that, but it isn't in policy, and I think it's good to be in policy, so that like in the event that we have a really high amount of turnover, that doesn't get forgotten and lost, right? Because it's a really good practice. It's a recent practice. When I first came to Student Gov, we weren't doing that. And the way that it's worded, the Senate will be provided with application materials. So if this is a weird hiring process where there aren't application materials, it doesn't obligate the person to show hiring materials. It obligates them to show what hiring materials they had. And it doesn't say all hiring materials, it just says hiring materials. So they can choose resume, cover letter, or both, but they don't have to include some of the more personal stuff like transcripts, because I don't want them to. I don't want to know what you guys are doing in class. And yeah, so another one of the reasons that this is happening right now, because I know that was a topic of discussion, like why was it this week, is that I'm probably not returning back to Senate next semester, and I want to make sure I got it in before then, because I can't just be a Joe Smo that comes in with my laptop and stands up here. But this summer, I had the opportunity to help on the committee that selected our nomination for the student trustee. And even though that student trustee did get picked, there was a senator and a representative on that committee, and I thought that was really good to making sure that we had a very thoughtful pick that felt represented the student body, because without having a senator on that committee, you have the opportunity for there to be a vacuum of 0 elected and appointed student representation on a hiring committee, because it could be someone who was hired. And then, I don't know if I'm wording that correctly, but I think it was really fruitful to have a senator on that hiring committee. So we've already had a test run that it works. It works, we can do it. And yeah, questions?
Are there any questions for the speaker? Senator Penn?
How do we understand, how do we define a year for the purpose of this?
So like a lot of the times through the student gov documents, we have just a year, and that acts as our academic year. But if you would like to make a motion to put academic year and like modify that and write academic year, we can.
Sure, or the computer student, or how do we
The
typically?
reality is that hiring happens once a year, so it doesn't really matter how we define. Does that make sense? It doesn't really matter how we define a year, because a year span would still be sufficient. I think, it's kind of how I feel.
Right, like it's really like what's happening tonight later when we're hiring someone in November is rare. So this was more, say, like 2 people within that time, that like month where we do 7 or 8 hires. But a year was the way to put it that it made sense with the rest of our documents, because the rest of our documents also use a year as a time frame for hiring.
Any other questions for the speaker? Representative Merchant?
Yeah, I might be wrong saying this, but was this a policy that was brought up last year?
I was so excited for someone to ask that question. Let me tell you what's a little bit different. Then we have the same topic of student senators sitting on committees. We have the same topic. But there's a few things that different. A lot of people, there was some clauses in there about the procedure of how we would do senators on hiring committees that was very complicated. So it made it so that a senator had to be on a hiring committee. We took that out so that it's not required. It's just an option that a senator can sit on it. What else is, so like that's different, the whole procedure is different, so like it has the same end goal of that resolution, but the entire procedure to get there is different than what was in last resolution, and it's more of like, so like, and there's also a different climate than last year for student gov, in the sense that we are in so much more demand than we ever have been. Everyone on campus knows who we are, and they're expecting a lot out of our executives right now. And they're expecting a lot out of our senators right now. So any point in our policies and documents where we could spread out the responsibilities of student gov to more people is probably more needed than ever, because we are just at such high demand as an organization, which is absolutely an amazing thing. And it is such a welcome change from when I first came to student gov.
Any other questions for the speaker? Seeing none, what's the committee's recommendation?
100 ought to pass.
Senator Weber?
Motion to accept the committee's recommendations.
Second. Hearing a second, if that's the pleasure of the Senate, that is adopted. Any discussion? President Tripp?
I want to, this is correct my previous statement from the meeting. This is a different resolution. I apologize for saying otherwise. That's all. I just want to put it out there.
Any more points of discussion? Any debate? Senator Thompson?
It is unfortunate that only one person had to vote on it. It's unfortunate that I was the only person who voted on this in the committee. I could have ended Egan's financial policies reform because no one came to the committee. I just wanted to add that, what did I want to add? Sorry, I like as soon as I started talking. Yeah, okay. Just because this passed the committee doesn't mean that you guys can't still debate it and you can't still amend it or kill it or pass it, just like we would in the committee. So yes, I was the only one who spoke on it in the committee, but you still have a chance to make your voice heard in regards to this.
President Tripp.
I'm gonna start with the elephant in the room with the one centered on polypro. Issues like this, large changes, even if it's something that could pass the Senate in flying colors, need to be discussed and worked on in committee. That's very important. I don't blame Polypro for this. If they don't have people to support them and work with, it's hard for them to do so, right? And I know we consistently talk about how long these meetings are, but they're long because issues aren't being straightened out in committees. And I remember being Polypro chair, I remember having to pull teeth. I remember I would literally be walking through the union, and if I saw two senators, I'd say, bop, bop, Polypro, vote on this. It makes things really hard. And I think Meredith has been very, very, very willing to change around the time of Polypro and these things, but these discussions, and of course, as I said earlier, it's important to for these things to be reported on to the Senate so that senators who maybe otherwise don't normally go have the chance to address something that is specific to them. But the general gist is your check and balance, not just for executives, but for chairships and each other, is only as strong as you use them. So I'm just gonna put that out there, and I really do encourage people to get more involved in this committee because it is absolutely the most important committee of the Senate, in my opinion.
Senator Waters.
I recognize that. I probably should have done a little bit more like outreach to Senate, being like, please come more than usual, but like more specific outreach on what we were hearing, rather than just, I moved the time, please come. That's my bad. I would usually criticize someone for that, so you're welcome to criticize me for it too. But at the same time, I changed my work schedule around to make Polypro work better for the Senate, and people still don't show up. And that part is frustrating in itself. I want you guys to be as in love with policy and procedure as I am. And even if you are 10% as in love with policy and procedure as I am, to still show up.
Any other debate? Representative Emergent?
Yeah, so I just remember, like, at least for all of you who are youngins, timely speaking, of course, I was participating over last year. This had come up, now it's.
Are you debating this current motion?
Yeah, sorry, did it again. But anyways, so for this, I have some reservations on it, just as a point of information for all the senators. Y'all have a lot of power, in terms of just finalizing, the hiring process for applicants, passing consent agenda, passing actual EBC bills, a lot of passing. And it's usually like my sort of opinion that like, this is the one thing that like, it's just sort of like the check and balance again of like separation of powers. But I'm just a political science guy, I'm one opinion. But if anything, if I can throw my hat into the ring, I would like this to be referred back to policy and procedure and really have more people being added on and discussing this.
Senator Weber.
Just a general point, what would the change be? Because I think with this, it isn't, again, like what Senator Waters said, it isn't a, like you don't have to have a senator. I think having just options and if stuff happens and whoever's on the committees can still be those execs and not student workers. I think, like, so I'm just wondering what that change that you would like want to see have happened versus a different thing.
May I?
Do you want to answer that?
Yes, of course, it'll just be quick. I think for like my sort of change would be, I think it should be like a conditional sort of thing. As Senator Waters had mentioned earlier, timeness is, sometimes that is not really friendly to us. Everyone has specific different schedules. So I think just in that sort of moment, I think there should just be like a tiered list of like senators who would be available, like, or from speaking to sit on such hiring procedures. And then it could be by presidential appointment or vice presidential appointment, just depending on just the need, and it can be put into that as required, if that makes any sense. Just build that.
Okay, so my view on this is twofold. Firstly, I think that the third resolve section should pass the Senate regardless of what we do. I think that Senator Weber is probably correct. I don't see much changing in any discussions about this. I think it's probably something, once again, that the Senate is going to have to make a decision on here and now. That's okay. We're here. It's now. So we'll do that. The second fold is I understand I understand where this is coming from, and I get it. And I understand that, UMSG have not been transparent in the past, as much as it should be about hiring. That being said, this is a 501c3 nonprofit, okay? And nonprofits are divided into boards and executive branches, right? There is nothing against doing this. We can absolutely adopt this into our policies. I want that to be very clear. There is no restrictions legally in this regard. We talked this very thoroughly last year. But what it does do is it restructures it, right? The point is advice and consent of the Senate. I lean caution on doing this. I think that there is a check and balance. I think that the exec team, I think the system right now, it works well. And I think that requiring those Senate materials have to happen. They're not currently required. You're gonna see them tonight, right? It really does have to do with holding the leadership accountable, but that's what you guys should be doing 24/7. And I guess that's kind of my perspective is at the end of the day, if this is passed, and again, it was my decision to put a student senator and a rep on the STSC. The difference though is that that's not an internal hiring position. That was an external recommendation from the campus. I do see that as fundamentally different. But however, if it is the belief of the Senate, and this is a check and balance worth adding, and the exec team, or it's something that covers a base that's currently not covered. I absolutely accept the decision of the Senate, and that's it.
Senator Waters.
This is more discussion that day. I would rehear this at Polypro, so I made the motion to send it back to Polypro. With that being said, the debate part is that people, I feel like if it got sent back to Polypro, it would be Jordan again, respectfully. Just because if people can't show up now, I don't think they would show up again. But I would, as the chair of Polypro, rehear this in Polypro if that was you guys vote. But the reason that, and again, more reasoning on like why the time and now is that we are doing a hiring tonight, and I didn't want it to be perceived as a reactionary resolution. No, I don't know how that's gonna go. We don't know how that's gonna go, but I didn't want it to be perceived as reactionary. I want it to be perceived as what it is, which is a policy hole.
Again, touching on what it was last year, I was against it last year. I will say that I am also against it this year, at least including of student senators. I feel like us as senators, we already have to be put on the hiring process. We have the final say. The Senate as a whole is like the person doesn't get hired. That's just how it goes. And having them involved in two steps, while yes, it may be good to help ease any demand that comes up. All of our execs have office hours. They're in the office for 10 hours a week, every single one of them. And so that's what they're able to use this at the end of the year to do, is to run hiring committees. I also feel that this creates possible conflict in the future. Say that we have a president and he's a lot of friends on Senate. And he wants to pick from the senators that he knows the best, and have them just pick all of the execs. This allows them to do that. It's not in good conscience with anybody, but it is a possibility, just as this is now, where as everything else, or as it is currently, it's just among like the employees and the execs that are sitting there, as opposed to people who can just get signatures on a sheet and then come to a few meetings, and then they're able to have a say in who gets hired, and that we spend $7,000 on for the next upcoming academic year.
Any other comments or debate, Senator Thompson?
There's not really anything saying that bias can't exist as is with the current exec hiring. Like, we trust that it doesn't, but can't we also trust that with student senators? Like, I don't know. There's no stopgap right now to prevent bias in hiring.
Vice President Oldfield.
I actually disagree, because I do think that by having the execs be in the hiring committee and selecting a candidate to present, and then the Senate, the entire Senate being the voice of the Senate, rather than just having one or two individuals in the hiring committee also being the voice of the Senate, can help counteract perhaps that imbalance or perhaps unfairness in like selecting candidates.
Senator Markham.
With all due respect to Representative DeMerchant's previous topic, last year it was voted down because it was rather complicated. This year, this seems pretty cut and dry. It only changes three words, and student senators to it. Yeah, I feel like this is a pretty good topic to be passed.
Senator Weber?
Speaking on that point that Senator Thompson said, it isn't that for the execs to like be friends or have like and just do what they want. It's that there's the higher barrier of entry. That these execs go through this thing already and then it gets put to Senate to vote on. There's having just a senator who get in Senate for with no, there's no real barrier to get in. So I think that is a little difference is that the execs that are on these tables have gone through a process and have like both the execs previously and the Senate again, so it's a little harder to get that sort of impact.
Any new points for debate? We'll go to Senator Sparks.
I'm just curious on what the executives think of this, because they're the ones directly affected with their hiring committees.
With that, I'd like to cede my chairship to our President Pro Tem Boring, which I can reclaim at any chance that I want unless the Senate votes against.
Here we go. Does that, I guess, actually regress?
Not I expected that going, but. Vice President Gibson.
So I would like to respond to Senator Sparks' question. As somebody who was a senator for 3 years, I fully think that putting senators on hiring committees is redundant. And in some cases, I think it can be perceived as a betrayal of checks and balances when it comes to, as previous speakers have mentioned, barrier entry, when it comes to like confidentiality, legal training, stuff like that. How it's written right now, I will say as an executive, if I were the president and it was my job to appoint people to my hiring committees to hire people on my behalf, what would the point of having senators be written down when I believe that it's a betrayal of checks and balances? I have no incentive to choose a senator. There's no enforcement agent to this. It's non-binding. Yeah, I would at least start with that. Yeah, that's my biggest point.
I just want perspective too. The disagreement was not just because it was confusing last time. There was a fundamental disagreement on whether or not senators should. I want to make that very clear. There wasn't just, oh, it was too wordy. Not the case. I will also say that previous executives felt very strongly about this. I would say the executive here is at least verbally quieter. But my perspective is similar to Vice President Peterson's in the fact that I mean, last time we had 9, 10 candidates in position. That's like 10 hours during the busiest time of the year that senators don't already have set aside. You know what I mean? We have 15 hours set aside a week for this organization. And we see this organization function every week for 10 hours at least in the office, 5 more, depending on how late this meeting is, it could go longer, right? I think that there's a lot of benefit of having those who see the day-to-day operations to a T. I don't disagree. I do not think that you as senators are any less in this organization, right? But you're in a different part of this organization. It's how it's set up. We all had the same job. What would the point be? But additionally to that, something that we don't have an issue with right now is that when we do hiring, the entire Senate, apart from those who applied for the position, get to vote on it. But if we're in a situation where half the Senate is applying for the position and half the Senate is sitting on the committee, I don't even know if we end up having quorum. It's dangerous. So I just think that at the bottom of and also you would expect those senators on the committees, I would expect, we do not vote, right? We do not need to pass forward a recommendation and then vote. Cabinet does not confirm, right? Our only vote, our only decision is who we put forth, and the Senate can send that back and also request materials of others. It's already in your power to do so, but the difference is that you as a body get to make that decision. And picking people off and changing it up, I just don't see the benefit.
Senator Waddles.
So just point of kind of information is we can't have half the Senate on hiring committees because we have a maximum of 3 people on hiring committees and we have to have we have to have an employee on the committee. So that's not a real scenario where so much of the Senate would be serving. It is a real scenario that we could have 4 or 5 senators apply for a position. That's only happened 2-3 times since I've been here, so it's not a frequent happen, but it is something that has happened. So I just wanted to make that clear that that couldn't happen with this policy.
Wasn't true. That's not true. If people are sitting on these committees on top of those people who are applying to committees, this is absolutely a real thing. No, maybe not in a Senate of 30 people that we have right now, but we do not always have a Senate of 30 people. In fact, I came into this organization with a Senate of 3 people, right? And I get it. They don't have to sit on this. That can be remedied there. But it just feels like a hurdle that we're adding and consideration that, I mean, you guys already have enough responsibilities. The things that we already expect senators to do, not paid with unlimited hours and whatever you put into it, is frankly kind of ridiculous sometimes, right? And I really, really appreciate all of your guys' dedication to this. I mean, I remember putting in, gosh, I don't know, 15 hours a week just as a senator when I was first here. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that, you know, I had to take on 7 chairships because there were only 3 senators. So we remember that well. So I just think that it is a real situation. It is a real possibility. I disagree that it could not happen. And if it did happen at that point, you would see a stalemate. There would be a lock, and I don't know how you would solve that, especially when people who are applying for the position cannot be in the room when the position is being considered. You understand that? So those things double. You have people who cannot vote because they sat on the committee. Also, that being said too, the number needs to increase if we're doing this. It just has to. And that was a discussion we had last time. It's to allow the full breadth of having, I find it very important to have the president and vice president elects to sit on them, as well as in our outgoing position and a student, a employee, that maxes it out. Senators can sit on it. So if we really do want to do this, and if this is what you want to move forward with, happy to do so, happy to comply. Can't wait to open it up, but the number needs to be amended and changed, at least to, I don't really know why they cap it, but I guess if we're going to cap it, I would cap it at 5. Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, not having ever been a senator, I can't say I understand fully from your position, but I remember early in last year, I think there was a couple hires like way earlier. From my position, I was just frustrated being, you know, seeing things come and not really see any materials. And I think that might be part of where this comes from, of wanting to resolve not seeing the actual materials that hiring committees get to see. And this just being a, you know, a way to resolve that. I started listening to this as neutral, and now I think it is better to keep these 2 bodies separate. And if anything, I think maybe it should be good to consider sending it back to committee, partly because of, you know, increasing the cap on hiring committees. I personally think that would be good, just a little bit, like 1 or more, you know? But yeah, I think the main thing is just the frustration of not knowing who you're really getting. And I think the application material resolves that.
I just want to offer 2 things out there, and I know this isn't gonna fit with what you've got up there right now, but in current hiring procedures at the university, there's a couple of other options beyond the hiring committee. One is an open session with the candidates, where anybody can ask some questions of the candidates so that people can have an opportunity to meet them. The other is open resumes. So maybe not full application materials, but maybe resumes could be made available to people outside of the hiring committee so that when Senate confirms the decisions, they have that information available.
Senator Wallace.
Okay, cool. So if you guys, and it's will of Senate, right? Well, if you guys strike it to where it only includes the last resolve, I think based on Advisor Snuffer's comments, it'd be really fruitful for us to the Senate will be provided with application materials upon confirmation of chosen applicant. We could word that if it was what you guys wanted to say of all applicants. And then when we pick, we don't interfere with hiring committees because that's the executives, but that still gives us more creative power in Senate, which is what we're lacking. We're not lacking wanting to be busier 10 hours a week. We actually are more lacking creative control in the hiring process because it's more of a confirmation in the Senate rather than a creative.
Yeah, so, I mean, I wanna put in a representative, perspective into this. Not being a senator, not being an executive, a lot of people made a lot of good cases tonight. And like you said, and I agree with this wholeheartedly, there is a check and balances in the system. In a nonprofit level, it works the same way. But here's what was also said last year, and I think it can be reflected here and now, is that on hiring committees that exist on the nonprofit level, on separate levels as well. If we have more than one application, right? Let's just say, well, you said VPSL had around like 10 applications last year. The executives, if we're talking about biases, if, we're bringing in that whole thing of, oh, we're only seeing one applicant's materials, what about the other, 10? Solidifying it down to the top 3, the top 2 candidates. Having that information present, where it's like, we came out with these two choices for who would best fit this position, and then bringing that to Senate to be the last voice. Because if we're doing it on that level, it eliminates the bias of, oh, but what about the other people? Like, we want to see what the other applicants have. So having like a top 3, top 2 option, if it presents itself, because sometimes there's only 2 options, there's one application. So presenting it that way, so that, you get that, as it was being discussed earlier, that creative side, or, that dual perspective that people are talking about, to be able to choose somebody that would best fit the role, and then Senate gets to have that final say before we decide to hire them. Vice President Ochu?
Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that you currently, as senators, are able to ask for other applicants' materials if you are not content with the materials you are given at the time of, like, the executive session where we are hiring. And if you feel like that is something that should have been happening before now, maybe you should have been asking to receive that material before now, because it's part of your responsibility as serving as a good senator to make informed decisions. And if you feel like you haven't been making informed decisions, you should have been asking more questions before you form more material.
President Tripp?
I think too, that another problem is, I feel like it's kind of like an inherent distrust. I really do expect that the executives are able to put forward candidates that matter and that work. Sure, I guess we could have an open hiring process, but none of us have time for that. We need to be realistic about what this organization does and when this happens. Okay, this happens during the busiest part of the year, during the spring, transitions. This organization is happening, people are wrapping things up, right? This is like that's the point of a hiring committee. The point of the hiring committee is to take the burden off of you guys, right? That's like literally the whole point. And it's also for those who are the most hands-on to these experiences and working with these roles. In 15 hours a week, I work with all of these people, right? They just have, I genuinely believe, and you can shoot me in the foot for saying this, I think that executives have a better grasp of what it is like and what's required to be an executive. If you disagree, so be it, but it's just the reality. And the other part of that too is I don't think it's an undercut of senators, right? It's a different capacity that you serve in, and that's okay. That's the point. That's why, if we could, I don't know, I guess if I could hire you all as vice presidents and we could sit around the table, we could all just be vice president each other, that's fine. But that's not why this organization is built this way. And also, the president, in most cases, is really the only person who is genuinely elected upon by the student body, because we didn't even have senator elections this year, right? I just feel like that the student body and the Senate before entrusted those executives to serve in that capacity, and then it is the job of the following Senate to confirm them again. I just don't see this creative concept. I don't think that's the point of a board of directors. It's supposed to be committees, sure, that's the point, but when we're here and we're making these decisions, you guys are supposed to be the bulwark. You're supposed to be the final thing. I just think that I just don't see sure, if we have the top 2 candidates, but I don't see that being the issue. We should have to, we really think this person is the person, but to please the Senate, we'll put forth this person too. That just doesn't work. And to be all fairness, you guys should wait until later, right? I think that there is an open, honest conversation that happens during hiring. And when executives are unsure about who to hire, they will come to you. I promise, they will come to you. Hold your breaths, I promise.
Senator Wells.
I want to add some pieces of context. I've worked for multiple nonprofits with board of directors. And so I think that this is so different in the way that we interact with our employees. Other nonprofits that I worked at, I didn't know what they looked like. I didn't know what board of directors looked like. I didn't know their names. This is one where if we want projects as a board of directors, we have to work with the people that we appoint. And that makes it really, it puts it into a position where it's not apples and oranges. It's apples and oranges between us and another nonprofit, and any nonprofit with a board of directors. The other context is what we do in hiring right now, where we have open and honest conversations, is new. And it comes from senators asking for open and honest conversations and wanting open and honest conversations. But these are for safeguards for when senators don't know they can ask for open and honest conversations, or when we have a Senate that only has 3 people. It almost works better when there's a Senate with 3 people, if that makes sense.
Board of Trustees.
Well,
My apologies. Board of Trustees Representative Britton.
I want to speak to the student trustee selection committee, and that process, the way that, like, the person that we were choosing in that process was the student who represents the entire undergraduate group for the entire system on the board of trustees in executive session and as a voting member, which is a really important role. And we chose that person through the multiple hiring processes because we all felt that we trusted them to represent us. And I feel like that's a little bit reflective of what happens when the Senate hires an executive board, is you choose the people that you are then trusting to sort of recommend what they think is best. Senate, and so you sort of have the first say and the last say in that way, and you chose those people who are the executives to sort of do the, like, I guess, and kind of like parse through all the paperwork and do the interviews, but you did choose those people and hire them because you trusted them to make a choice in your favor. And I think that putting senators in every step of the process, that makes me a little uncomfortable.
Senator Wells. So I wanted to say that I support the motion in its original text, just because it doesn't mandate that the president selects a student senator. It just gives the president an ability to appoint one if they so choose. While it's likely redundant for President Tripp, and he could choose not to select senators for those committees, there's gonna be, several decades more of executives after him. And I think it's important to allow future executives the flexibility and choice to schedule it. It says in the text itself, the senators must be valid and willing individuals, meaning they only take on the extra workload if they want to. So I think that choice is important to both the Senate and the president. Thanks a lot. Senator Sparks.
From my perspective as a new senator, it seems like the executives are very happy with this proposal, and I tend to agree with them. Because from I'm here and I'm looking at things very objectively, it does seem a little redundant that being part of the first and the last step. And also, it seems like this proposal comes from a distrust of the executives. We all work together and we're supposed to run the student council together. And if we put in these places of distrust and kind of sew it into our actual constitution, it seems a little counterproductive.
Senator Muzzle. Point of order, I think that's assuming the motives of another senator in presenting this motion. That should be permitted. I'm saying it comes from a place of mistrust. Representative Moulton.
Well, I was just gonna say, at least for that end, I was gonna say, like, if senators had any qualms or like there was something going on executives, there are provisions to hold executives accountable. was something I said last year, I'm gonna say it this year, you guys can do a motion of no confidence. That's happening in GSG, that could happen here, theoretically speaking, please do not do that just for the fun of it, please, for the love of God. Anyways, for that, again, like, you guys have the power to boot out executives if need be. And even to like motion for like all the other things, senators have a lot of power. At least in speaking for like representatives for like a hot second, I can't motion the previous. I can't really do anything in terms of motioning in terms of actual Senate. All I can really do is stuff in cabinet. And even then, you know, there are other senators that are sitting on there and they have an opinion on that. So I think we should all just like bear in mind for like the process for the hiring committee. If we're like, as someone had mentioned, I don't remember who, if we're taking the end the end points of the process and we're sprinkling it in, it kind of makes it so that like it's not necessarily the end process. The Senate is joining through another process that is already occurring. Like, you know, the financial stuff, like 2 senators sit on the EBC, all the senators pass, you know, the action one, it's a full Senate, and then we have 2 senators on cabinet. That's something, I think that's really good, but in terms of the hiring process, I think that's just something that we should just simply stick away from. And I get it, if there's gonna be a time where senators feel very differently about that, then we can have that conversation, but we haven't had the conditions needed for that conversation now. And I for one trust everyone in this room to hold each and every one of each other accountable for a process like that.
So a motion to limit debate to 3 minutes. All second.
3 minutes per individual, oh, sorry.
Sorry, second, motion.
Second. The Senate, any discussion about the motion? Debate about the motion, Senator Waddles?
3 minutes per person or 3 minutes in total?
Entirely, in case someone wants to make any amendments, but we keep touching the same points.
Senator Waddles?
I was gonna make an amendment, put it in line so we can still make some changes, and I feel like that might have its own bit of debate, just on what we're actually changing, so I'm against this. I'm just looking forward.
Senator Sparks?
I'm also against this. It did come up last meeting of like, you guys aren't paying for the long haul and like talking things out, then why are you on Senate? And I tend to agree with that one. And it doesn't seem like we're going around in circles. People are bringing up new points and then we're going back and reminding of things. But we are making progress in the conversation, so I don't think it should be limited.
My intention wasn't to limit debate for amendments. That was.
That's
What, what's,
It's just limiting this whole thing to 3 minutes, and then we have to vote on whatever it is at the end.
Okay,
See what I mean?
it was, yeah, my point was just, amendments.
Be generally cautious about time. How about we do that? And then if it comes to it, let's move to previous. Okay.
I was actually gonna propose a motion to refer this back to committee.
Okay, but coordinating probably is the 3 minute.
Oh, yes, my bad.
And we're calling in debate for that motion?
Yes, my bad.
Senator Waddles?
Kill us.
I'm sorry. Okay, all senators in favor of that motion, all opposed? Seeing a clear not majority that fails. Senator. Senator Josh.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm letting it.
I'm going to amend this resolution to strike and student senators, with the change where it lists 2 or more, 2 or more than, like, fewer than 2 or more than 3, to fewer than 2 or more than 5. Just to increase the cap for who can sit on committees, 5 voices would be good if it is allowed and able. And I move to strike the second resolve item because it's no longer applicable. And keep the numbers in play.
Second. Discussion? Senator Waddles?
I think this is discussion, if this gets voted down, we can still change the number and keep student senators if this particular amendment moved down, just to be clear for people, so that like even if you want to revisit the number, but agree with and student senators, we can do that, just want to make that clear.
Do you want discussion? Debate? All right, all those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed?
You need to retake that vote.
Yeah, okay, all those.
Raise your hands like you mean it, guys.
All those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. All those in opposition to the amendment? Passes. Okay. The amendment passes.
And now.
Yeah, now back to debate. Yeah. Vice President Pearson.
I propose a motion to refer this back to committee.
Second. All right, motion to refer this back to committee, discussion? Debate? Senator Puzzle. I think personally, I don't really see the point of this. I think we just made a inclusive adjustment to this bill by striking down its main, aspect. I think we can just get this done tonight, save everybody the extra time.
Yeah.
Debate. Senator Joan.
I think this may need a little more work than the amendment provided, and I think that it could be done in polypro, and I think that we could urge everybody that had a lot to say tonight to attend polypro and make their voices heard there.
President Trump?
I would say that this can continue to be an ongoing discussion in Polypro, but I do think that the last part is a no-brainer and the raising the numbers is a no-brainer, so we might as well pass this in the meantime, is my take.
Still on debate? Vice President Ocho?
We've spent a long time talking about this, and I think we would all be a little disappointed if nothing came out of our quite long discussion, and I think we can all agree that having the, final resolve is important, so let's at least get that done, and everyone can still continue the second portion discussion if they'd like, just not tonight.
Comes back to polygraph, at least, we should just pass this and then polygraph can go over other things and then motion to previous.
Are you moving to previous at the end?
I'm moving to previous on sending this back to committee.
Okay. Second. You have to vote on.
Yeah, motion previous, send us back to the committee, all in favor. Raise your hand.
Wait.
So this is a vote.
This is voting on you're good. This is a fun policy. Okay, yeah. So, we're voting, you have to vote on right now whether or not you're ending debate and moving to previous, all right? So it's an immediate vote, so.
We're just on sending it back to committee, debate on sending it back.
Point of order, if she's the speaker, she can't make that, right? Like a senator has to make that.
That is correct. Somebody else has to make one.
I guess.
Senator Thompson,
Motion previous. Second.
Hi, guys.
Now we vote on the motion for previous.
yeah, all those in favor, sending it back, motion previous, sorry. Okay, all those opposed on motion previous. Same clear majority, that passes.
Now we're voting.
Now we're voting on the amended resolution.
No, we're voting on, okay, we're voting on now, right now to refer it back to committee or to pass something.
Yes.
And does anybody have, no, there is no discussion or debate, just vote.
Votes on to the send back to committee.
Yes.
Okay, vote on the send back to committee, all those in favor? All those opposed? So you're clear not majority, that motion fails.
Back to discussing it as amended, debate.
Debate as amended, Senator Wallace.
I would encourage, if a senator was so inclined, to change application material, the last resolve, Senate will be provided with application materials upon confirmation of the chosen applicant. To the senator will be provided with application materials of all the candidates upon confirmation of the chosen applicant. If you guys would like to see all of the applicants when we decide.
Vice President Pearson.
I encourage the senator to make a motion to previous.
Senator Fallon.
I motion to amend the document in the last 3 lines of the first resolve section. It says his or her discretion. I believe that should say their discretion, and him or herself, that should say themselves.
Second. The first resolved and the second resolved. Oh, never mind. No, you're right. Never mind. No, you're right. You're right. I was just double checking that we did procedurally. You're right. Yep.
Discussion on the proposed amendment. Debate on the proposed amendment. You want to do a vote, all those in favor of the proposed amendment? All those opposed? So the clear majority, that amendment passes. All right, moving back to debate.
Debate on the, it's just.
Information. Okay, can I call a division on the text as amended?
It's already voted on.
No.
Yeah.
Or no, as in like, the bill as a whole. Like, could I call for division and?
No, because there's already a vote going to it. so-
Yeah, the division is calling a vote on it, so you would just motion to previous to do essentially the same thing, unless you're trying to, what are you forced, are you trying to?
No, I just wanted to go to a vote, that's all.
Move to previous.
And it's more fun than moving previous, but okay, I'll move.
The division is only if something is gonna happen at the pleasure of the Senate, does that make sense? So right before that gavel hits pleasure of the Senate, you go division, and then you have to vote on it. Yeah.
Senator Bishop. I move the previous. Second. All those in favor of moving the previous? All those opposed to moving the previous? Seeing none, Shall we vote? Voting on the amended resolution, all those in favor? All those opposed? Seeing a clear majority that passes, and that I assume the chair. Let's move it together.
Excellent discussion.
Benefit from the system, don't.
Seeing that would conclude new business and seeing no main motion, I'm looking for a motion to enter executive session. Senator Moore? Hearing that, if that is the pleasure of the Senate, it's adopted. Any discussion or debate on entering executive session? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? All abstaining? Seeing a clear majority that passes. The clerk will now hold in a moment.
Yeah. Sorry.
When is the pleasure of the clerk? We will call the roll.
I'll do it right.
For my levity, if you guys know applicants, be prepared to leave, just so we can.
We can go after.
But not.
Right now?
Can I propose to change the agenda to switch what we're hearing first?
After we call the roll.
Got it.
Oh, my bad.
What are you cooking up there?
Sorry.
See you, Shelburne, here.